Hello, curious people. I'm Dr. Emma Camp, a marine biologist and the team leader of the Future Reefs Program at UTS. And I'm here to answer your curious questions about coral, climate change, and the future of the Great Barrier Reef. This is Science Curious. Our UTS community have sent in some thought-provoking questions to tackle. Let's get started. What are the biggest threats to the Great Barrier Reef? And is it dying? The Great Barrier Reef is under threat from lots of things. The biggest of these is climate change. So the oceans are becoming warmer, more acidic, and have low oxygen conditions. They're also being exposed to more frequent and intense storm activity. This is combined with local stresses such as changes in water quality that threaten the ability of corals to live and survive. Since the 1980s, we've seen declining coral cover on the Great Barrier Reef, but importantly, the reef's not dead. Some areas have been severely impacted, and we are at a real risk of the reef looking different into the future, but hope's not lost yet. What makes the Great Barrier Reef so unique? What makes the Great Barrier Reef so unique is its size, how big it is, the fact that it's got so much biodiversity. It's made up of over 2,000 individual reefs. And so collectively, this makes it a home to many marine creatures and just an amazing ecosystem on this planet. We've all heard of the Great Barrier Reef. Are there other reefs and do they face similar challenges? There are other reefs around the world. And although we know a lot about the Great Barrier Reef here in Australia because of its size and also because it's such an Australian icon, there are reefs around the world that also provide really important functions to communities where they're found. So for example, they're found in the Caribbean, they're found around Africa, we find them around the Indo-Pacific, and these reefs, like the Australian Great Barrier Reef, provide important resources, economic and social values. Why are coral reefs so important to our oceans and marine life? This is a great question. Coral reefs are so important because they cover less than 1% of the ocean floor, but are home to over 25% of marine life. So reefs form this structure on the ocean floor that is crucial to support biodiversity and also has knock-on effects to the surrounding ecosystems, providing habitat sometimes for juvenile fish, but also playing an important role in nutrient cycling as well. What does the future look like for the Great Barrier Reef? So the future looks uncertain for the Great Barrier Reef. And a lot of predictions suggest that actually the reef will look very different, that we'll continue to lose coral cover. And the reason for that is the severe rate of ocean warming that compromises the ability of corals to survive. So ultimately, we have to tackle climate change to change that narrative and try to ensure that there is a future for corals. What activities are you and other scientists, communities and governments doing to protect and regenerate the Great Barrier Reef? A lot is happening at the moment. We are at a point where the risk to our reefs, both here in Australia and globally, is requiring everyone to come together to try and come up with innovative solutions to ultimately buy time for coral reefs while we tackle climate change. So I consider it like a toolbox of approaches that are being applied, and this includes scientists, governments, communities, industries, businesses coming together to try to work out how we can aid coral reefs. So some of the processes such as active intervention, how can we as individuals actively engage with the reef to boost its resilience? So things like coral propagation and planting, assisted evolution, trying to remove stresses from the reef like crown-of-thorns starfish. These are all ways we can try and boost the resilience of the reef. But also we need to look at ways that we can actually finance these things sustainably, and that's where businesses and industries come in to actually work collectively to try and secure a more promising future for the reef. What is your favourite species of coral and why? I get asked this question a lot, and my favourite species of coral is one called Acropora. It's a branching coral species. And the reason that I say this is my favourite species is that when I go into extreme systems where we wouldn't expect corals to particularly be able to survive, things like mangrove lagoons that are hot, acidic, have low oxygen environments, we find these Acropora often surviving there. And that's really surprising because we often think of these branching corals as being quite susceptible to stress. And so I like to think of the Acropora as being an example of resilience and also of hope for reefs. Just how big is the Great Barrier Reef? The Great Barrier Reef is the size of Italy. It is a big structure, visible from space, made up of over 2,000 individual coral reefs. What can I do to help protect and care for the reef? This is such a great question because even if you've never seen a reef, you don't live near a reef, your actions impact reefs around the world. The biggest threat to our coral reefs is changing climate. So any actions that we can take as individuals to reduce our impact on the planet, so reusing, driving our car less, taking action, making sure we vote for people that care about the environment, all of these actions can make us connected to the reef and ultimately help shape the future of the reef and the environment as a whole. Is the crown-of-thorns starfish still as big a threat as it used to be? So crown-of-thorns are still a threat to the reef, particularly in areas where there is poor water quality, and this can lead to them rapidly increasing in numbers. But there's been a lot of effort to try and improve the water quality management onto the reef, and also the Marine Park Authority have an effort to cull and remove crown-of-thorns starfish when there are these outbreaks to stop them taking over the reef. So at the moment, some really good management programs in place to try and reduce this threat to the reef. What is coral bleaching? So we can think of corals as a factory and then the microscopic algae as the solar panels that give that factory its energy. And then the bacteria and the viruses are the workers that move things around, and they all work in harmony when the environment is good. But when things like temperature become too high, that partnership breaks down, and actually the algae then leaves the coral, and so the coral turns white. And it's not dead at this point, but because the algae has left, we can see the white skeleton underneath, hence we say the coral's bleached. And if you think about that factory analogy, when we lose the solar panels, when we lose those algal cells, the animal is basically starving. It has a short period of time that it can survive, and if the stress doesn't go, then the coral will eventually die. But if the stress does start to go or become less, then they can actually reacquire the algae and begin to recover and function again. What does a healthy reef look like? A healthy coral reef will have a diversity of corals, but it'll also have a diversity of life on it, from the really microscopic bacteria that we cannot see, all the way up to the apex predators like sharks. And so we want to have that biodiverse ecosystem there to support a healthy functioning reef system. How do I positively interact with the reef? First of all, if you get the opportunity, go visit the reef, because that gives you the opportunity to fall in love with this amazing ecosystem and see firsthand how important reefs are, not only for marine life, but for communities around the world. If you are lucky enough to visit a reef, do your research. Go with people that care about the reef, companies that are sustainable, that are ensuring practices that don't harm the reef, but also your individual actions. So make sure that you're not touching the reef, you don't take anything but your memories with you, and ensure that if any creatures come by, if you're lucky enough to see a shark, just give it some space. It's not going to bother you, and you get to see and be a part of their magical underwater world. That was all the questions for today. I hope you learned something new. If you'd like to dive deeper into my research and the search for supercorals to build more resilient reefs, scroll down and check out the links in the description below. Until next time, stay curious.